Have you ever found a rock that looked out of place or a little weird? Well, David Mazurek did. He bought a farm in 1988 and found a seemingly ordinary stone being used as a doorstop. Fast forward a bit, and this doorstop turns out to be a meteorite, all the way from space, fetching a price of 000. And he's not the only one. There's also David Hole, who stumbled upon a peculiar red rock at a park in Australia, thinking it was gold. But no, it's even rarer, another meteorite, weighing in at 37.5 pounds. These two Davids are part of a club of surprising meteorite discoveries that span continents and decades. Just when you think you've heard it all, toss in a meteorite-turned weapon, a mid-air encounter with a skydiver, and even a meteorite that somehow made its way back to Earth after being thrown into space. And then, there's one story, one meteorite that, well, I'll leave you hanging for a moment. Be ready to gasp, folks. What's up, my incredible and inquisitive listeners? Are you all set to dive deep into the sea of knowledge and unravel some mysteries together? I'm your host, Caesar, and riding shotgun with me on this fascinating journey is none other than the insightful and vivacious Sonia.
Hello, lovely folks. Excited to dig into the wonders of the universe with you all.
As we embark on our daily journey to quench our curiosity, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode of the Curiosity Wonderland. Ready to lift off? Let's dive in. Now, imagine this. You buy a farm, and while the outgoing owner is showing you around, you notice a strange rock sitting against the barn door. You ask about it, and the owner casually tells you it's a meteorite. He even tells you a story about how he and his father saw it blaze through the sky in the 1930s before it landed on their property. So now you have a rock that's not just a rock anymore, it's a relic from outer space. A piece of the universe, right there on your farm.
Talk about a housewarming gift.
Right? For the next 30 years, this space rock served a very earthbound purpose. It was a doorstopper at the farm. But one day, the new owner, David Mazurek, heard about people selling small pieces of meteorites for good money. So, he decided to have the rock, which weighed 22 pounds, appraised at Central Michigan University.
I can see where this is going.
Exactly. Turns out, this was no ordinary rock, nor was it your everyday meteorite. It was a spectacular specimen, one of the biggest to ever smash into Michigan. And it had a considerable amount of nickel in it, making it scientifically valuable. So, what started as a doorstop ended up being sold to the Michigan State University's Abrams Planetarium for a cool 000.
Well, that's quite a story. Talk about an unexpected windfall.
Indeed. And this brings us to another David. This one is from Australia. David Hole went metal detecting in Maryborough Regional Park near Melbourne, Australia, which is in the gold-rich goldfields region. He found a strange red rock with a dimpled surface. He thought he'd struck gold, literally. He tried everything to open the rock, from acid baths to drills and angle grinders. But nothing worked. So, he gave up and moved on with his life.
But the story doesn't end there, does it?
Not at all. A few years later, his curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to get the rock identified at the Melbourne Museum. And that's where our story takes another interesting turn.
Now, you won't believe this, but it turns out that David Hole's gold was actually a super rare, 4.6 billion-year-old chondrite meteorite. We're talking a high percentage of iron and crystallized metallic minerals called chondrules. This hefty space rock weighed in at 37.5 pounds, making it the second largest chondrite ever discovered. It was so old that it formed when the solar system didn't even have planets. Just imagine that.
Wow. That's a find of a lifetime.
It really is. Now, speaking of lifetime finds, let's talk about the Wilcock family from the United Kingdom. In 2021, they had a close encounter with a meteorite right in their own driveway. They found small, dark objects scattered across their pavement that looked like barbecue briquettes. But they weren't leftovers from a summer cookout. These were fragments of the first meteorite to land in the UK in 31 years. And not just any meteorite. This was a rare carbonaceous chondrite meteorite, about 4.5 billion years old and formed long before Earth came into existence.
That's absolutely incredible. And to think, it happened right in their driveway.
Exactly. Now, all this talk about meteorites reminds me of a childhood memory. When I was a kid, I used to spend my summers at my grandparents' farm in Pernambuco. One day, while exploring the fields, I found a strange-looking rock. It was smoother than the other rocks, and had this metallic sheen. I was convinced I'd found a piece of a meteorite. I kept it, treasured it, and started reading everything I could about meteorites and space. That rock sparked my interest in history and the universe. And although I later discovered it wasn't a meteorite but an old piece of tractor machinery, the fascination never faded.
What a wonderful story! It just goes to show, sometimes it is the journey, not the destination, that matters most.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of fascinating journeys, let's travel back to 1873 or 1874. Archaeologists found an iron arrowhead near a lake in Switzerland. The significance of their find wasn't understood at the time, and the artifact was forgotten in a museum collection. Fast forward to the present day, and researchers have discovered that this arrowhead was not just any old piece of iron.
Now, back to the arrowhead. This wasn't a fragment of the nearby Twanberg meteorite as initially suspected. Instead, it appears the iron came from a meteorite that crashed into Estonia around 1500 BC. The curious thing is, to have reached Switzerland, it suggests that people in these regions were trading meteoric iron as far back as 800 BC. That's a historical discovery in itself.
It really goes to show how intertwined our history is with these celestial visitors.
Absolutely. Speaking of celestial visitors, let's move on to an event that happened in 2021. One night, a Canadian woman named Ruth Hamilton was woken up by her dog's frantic barking. Then there was an explosion, and drywall debris rained down on her. But it wasn't a burglary. Between her pillows, she found a fist-sized rock, and above her, a hole in the roof.
Oh, no. A meteorite?
Exactly. Apparently, a nearby construction crew had even heard the booming noise and witnessed an explosion in the sky moments before Ruth had called the police. It quickly became clear that a meteorite had crash-landed in her bed.
That must have been terrifying.
I can only imagine. But Ruth was incredibly lucky. Now, believe it or not, there's actually a record of a meteorite causing a fatality.
You're kidding.
Not at all. According to documents found in a Turkish archive, on August 22, 1888, a large fireball lit up the night sky before meteorites rained down on a small village in what is now Sulaymaniyah, Iraq. This bombardment lasted about 10 minutes, and 2 men were struck. 1 died, and the other was left paralyzed.
That's a terrifying event. But it's fascinating to see how our history is peppered with these encounters with space rocks.
Absolutely. And speaking of encounters, let's talk about a close call that happened in June 2012 over Rena, Norway. A group of skydivers. Now, speaking of close encounters, let's talk about Anders Helstrup, a skydiver who had an extremely close call. In June 2012, while skydiving over Rena, Norway, something went zooming past him so fast he barely noticed it.
Was it another skydiver?
No, not at all. It turned out to be a meteorite in its dark flight stage. That's when the fireball cools down, and what remains is just the rock.
That must have been terrifying. How close was it?
Close enough to be deadly. If the 11-pound rock, traveling at 186 miles per hour, had hit Helstrup, it would have cut him in half.
Wow, that's incredibly lucky. Now, what about this El Ali meteorite you mentioned earlier?
Ah, yes. The El Ali meteorite found in Somalia in 2020 was something else. Not only was it a hefty 16.5 tons, but it also held a surprise. Researchers found, hidden among the silicon compounds and metal, 2 minerals that had never been seen before.
2 new minerals? That's amazing.
It truly is. They were eventually named Elalite and L-constantinite.
It's fascinating how meteorites can offer such unique discoveries. But what's this about a meteorite-comet hybrid?
Well, both comets and asteroids were born from the same ring of dust and gas that once orbited a very young Sunday. The difference lies in the distance from the Sun they were formed at, with comets typically appearing farther away. But more details will be shared in a bit. And if you thought meteorites couldn't get any more interesting, consider a discovery made in 2019. Researchers sliced open a meteorite found in Antarctica's La Paz icefield and found something quite unexpected: a tiny fragment of a comet.
A comet inside a meteorite? That's quite a surprise.
Indeed. About 3 million years ago, an asteroid captured this grain of carbon-rich material from which comets form, encapsulating it and preserving it in pristine condition. When the asteroid broke up, the fragment containing the comet entered Earth's atmosphere and crashed into Antarctica as a meteorite.
It's like a time capsule from outer space.
That's an apt description. But let's talk about the ultimate time-traveling rock, a black meteorite discovered in Morocco in 2018, known as Northwest Africa 13188. This 1.42-pound piece is the only known meteorite to have made a round trip from Earth to space and back again.
Wait, it came from Earth? How is that even possible?
Well, that's a mystery. Its composition suggests volcanic formation, but it's unlikely a volcanic eruption could send it into space. Some researchers believe an impact from a large asteroid might have been strong enough to fling it into the solar system.
So it's like a cosmic boomerang.
You could say that. From offering us history lessons to providing scientific discoveries and even tales of survival, meteorites certainly give us a lot to ponder about our place in the universe. We've taken quite a journey today, from the humble doorstopper in Michigan to the cosmic hitchhiker from Morocco. We've discovered that meteorites aren't just rocks falling from the sky but are carriers of mysteries, bearers of new scientific knowledge, and sometimes, just narrowly missed catastrophes.
I think I'll never see meteorites in the same light again. We've learned about their dangerous side, how they've been weaponized, and even their part in the grand cycle of cosmic elements.
And let's not forget, they always rock the party when they arrive.
Definitely a grand entrance. Thank you all for joining us on this interstellar journey today. If you enjoyed this episode, please blast that like button and share it with your friends.
And don't forget to leave us your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you.
Stay curious, stay inspired, and as always, keep looking up. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone. Our cosmic journey today was fueled by an article titled 10 Meteorites with Quirky and Scary Backstories, written by Jana Louise Smith and published on Listverse on October 17, 2023. You can find the full URL in the video description if you're interested in digging deeper. Over and out.